Hallo liebe Freunde und Zuschauer und willkommen bei German for English Speakers. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 2 of the 4 German cases, a quick review of chapter 3 in my book, The Cases. In this video, we'll be looking at the nominative and the accusative cases in German. I think these are the best 2 to start with because, well, every noun in a dictionary is in the nominative case anyway to begin with, and the accusative is a concept that's quite easy for us English speakers to grasp. In a later video, I will cover the dative and the genitive then, but those 2 can be a little bit more tricky to get your head around. So let's jump into the nominative and the accusative. Los geht's. Welcome to le document, or maybe I should say das Dokument. This will be a summary of the first half of chapter 3 in my book. Chapter 3 is called The Cases, and in German we call the cases die Fälle. Die Fälle, the cases. The first 2 that we're talking about in this video are the nominative and the accusative. In a second video, part 2, we'll take a look at the dative and the genitive cases. So you may ask, what are these things that I hear about in German, these cases? Well, in German, we mark words based on their gender, which you're probably familiar with. All nouns in German are either masculine, feminine, or neuter. We also mark the functions of nouns in a sentence. And to do that, we mark them as, for example, the subject, the direct object, the indirect object, or a possessive object. And those things that I've just mentioned are what the cases are. So in the case of the nominative is the subject of the sentence. And I like to take that into a little bit more detail by thinking it's the thing that does the verb. So the verb is your doing word, right? So if I say the man runs, who is doing the running in that sentence? Well, the man. So he is the subject of the sentence. So all these cases are just for nouns, right? Nouns have to mark the case and the gender in German. There's a question that you can ask yourself when looking at a sentence to work out the nominative. And I would suggest that your question should be, what or who is doing the verb? So like from that little sentence, he is running. Who is doing the running? He. The man is running. Who is doing the running? What is doing the running? The man is doing the running. The woman eats a cake. Who's doing the eating? The woman. That's the subject. That's the nominative in German. The accusative marks the direct object. In other words, what the verb is being done onto. So let's take that last sentence. The woman is eating a cake. So if the woman is doing the eating, she's the subject. But what is the eating being done onto? The cake. The cake is the thing that's being eaten. That's the direct object. And a question that we can ask if we want to work out what something is being done onto, we just turn that into a question and we've got, what is the verb being done onto? Let's take a look at a couple of sentences in English as examples. And we're going to mark them with the colors. Oops, sorry, why didn't that turn black? Okay, there we go. We're going to mark them as red for the nominative and blue for the accusative. So we look at the first sentence. The dog bites the man. So if we want to work out what the nominative is, what the subject of the sentence is, we have to ask, what is doing the verb? So who is doing the biting? The man is not doing the biting. The dog is doing the biting. Therefore, the dog is the subject of the sentence. What is the verb being done onto? What's the accusative? Well, the biting is being done onto the man. The man is being bitten, so he is the direct object in this sentence. The table is brown. What is what's doing the verb? The table is doing the verb. The table is being, it's the nominative. Is there an accusative? What is the verb being done onto? Well, there's no other noun in this sentence, so there is no accusative. There's only a nominative. And in fact, the bare minimum that you need to write a grammatically correct sentence in either English or German is just a subject and a verb. For example, he runs is a perfectly grammatically complete sentence. Rennt or läuft. Perfectly grammatically complete. The bare minimum that you need for a sentence in German or English is a subject and a verb. Okay, next sentence. The boy wants to read his new book. So, what's the nominative? What's doing the verb? Who wants to read? The boy. The boy wants to read. He is the subject or the nominative of our sentence. And what's this reading being done onto? What does he want to read? He wants to read his new book. That's our accusative, our direct object. The elderly man lit a candle in the darkness. Who did the lighting? Who did the verb? The elderly man did the verb. He did the lighting. He's nominative. He's the subject. What is the verb being done onto? What was the lighting being done onto? It was being done onto a candle, direct object. In the darkness, although darkness is a noun, it's followed by a preposition. Prepositions are words like in, under, above, below, and so on. So this is actually what we would call a prepositional phrase. Some prepositions in German require you to use either the accusative or the dative, but I will be talking about those prepositions in a later video whenever we come to the chapter in my book on prepositions, so stay tuned for that. Here are two German sentences for us to also ponder, because I want to point something out to you, in particular with the first sentence. So let's go through our questions first with the first sentence here. Heute hat die Dame einen Kuchen gegessen. This is the past tense in German. Hat gegessen. Had eaten or ate. The lady ate a cake today. So who or what is doing the verb? Who or what did the eating? Die Dame, the lady, she did the eating. What was the eating being done onto? Well, she ate a cake. That's our direct object. The reason why I wanted to show this particular example is it's very easy to slip into the mindset that the first word in the sentence is the subject, because very often in English, the first word in the sentence is the subject. This is not always the case in German. I mean, it's not always the case in English either, but in German, this crops up more than it does in English, especially because German word order is quite flexible. Because they mark the cases, the function of the nouns in the sentence, the word order is a little bit more loose than it is in English. Not to mention that sometimes Germans start their sentence with a relative clause, and you have to read so much first before you even come to the main part of the sentence that has the subject in it. So sometimes the subject doesn't even appear in the same line as the start of the sentence. So you really have to hunt and find where the subject might be. And that's why asking the question, what is doing the verb, is so important. Let's take a look at our second example. Der Hund beißt den Mann. The dog bites the man. Who is doing the biting? Der Hund. The dog is doing the biting. Who is the biting being done onto? Den man. The man. The man is being bitten. What if I wrote den Mann beißt, der Hund? How would you translate this sentence into English? So remember this one here that's highlighted. Der Hund beißt den Mann. In English is the dog bites the man. This sentence is den Mann beißt der Hund. How do you translate this into English? The translation into English is exactly the same as the first sentence. Let that sink in for a minute. Why? How is it possible? Because German marks what the subject is and what the direct object is, we can play with the word order. So if we look at this sentence, den Mann beißt der Hund, we might ask, who's doing the biting? Well, the dog is still doing the biting. The word der tells us that this word Hund is nominative, it's the subject. The word den tells us that man, the man, is the direct object. So even though we can play with the word order a little bit, the meaning of the sentence is the same. Now, I don't recommend that you start all your sentences with a direct object because that's really quite weird. And this would only be said in really specific circumstances. Like if you wanted to put emphasis on the man was bitten by the dog, right? That would be different. So in English, we might say, the dog bit the man, not the woman, not the child. The dog bit the man. If I wanted to do that in German, I could also put emphasis on it. Der Hund beißt den Mann. But another way I could put emphasis on den Mann is to start my sentence with it. Den Mann beißt der Hund. That's how we can apply emphasis. In the beginning steps of learning German, you really don't need to worry about this. This is something that's a little bit more nuanced, but it is important to know the main takeaway from this little bit of the video. The first word in the sentence is not necessarily the subject in German. Okay, so these words that we've seen so far, der, den, die, these are called definite articles. And in English, we only have one definite article, the lady, the dog, the cake, whatever. We don't have linguistic genders in English, at least not anymore. But in German, we have to mark the gender. So we have them listed here, masculine, feminine, neuter, and plural. So in the nominative, a masculine nominative would be marked with der. That's our definite article. For feminine, die. For neuter, das. For plural, die. Okay. Whenever you look up a noun in the dictionary, it's always given to you in its nominative form. So you'll see these words, der, die, das, die, or you might just see M after the noun to show it's masculine. In the accusative, only the masculine definite article changes. Den. The rest stay the same. So, when we're looking at the accusative case, when we're looking at the direct object, only masculine nouns receive a change. Feminine, neuter, and plural do not change. Which means if we had a sentence like Die Dame liebt die Katze, I could also say die Katze liebt die Dame. Because feminine and neuter and plural don't change between the nominative and the accusative, usually what we do in this case is we rely on word order to determine what the subject of the sentence is. So if I was to translate this into English, I would say, the lady loves the cat. Equally, if I had more context, it might be that this sentence should be translated as the cat loves the lady, because it's almost reversible because the word "die" is not changing. We're not marking a difference between nominative and accusative. So in this case, you would rely on word order to determine what the nominative is and what the accusative is. So who's doing the loving? What is the love being done onto? Die Dame is doing the loving in the first sentence. Die Katze is the receiver of that love. And likewise, in the reverse, if we were basing it on word order, Die Katze would be doing the loving, that would be nominative, and Die Dame would be the accusative, the direct object. Just a little example. Okay, now on to the indefinite articles. So for nominative masculine, we'll have ein. For feminine, we'll have eine. And for neuter, we'll have ein. And for the plural, there is no indefinite article. So if we think about English, we also don't have an indefinite article for the plural. We can say a table, a cat, an apple, but we can't say a cats or a tables or an apples. That doesn't exist, right? So in German, it's the same thing. There's no indefinite article for the plural. For the accusative, again, just like with the definite articles, the only one that's going to change is the masculine, and it becomes einen. The rest of them stay the same. Oops. Remembering that there is no indefinite article for the plural. For the negative indefinite articles, which can be translated into English as not a or no plus noun, they would be the same as the indefinite articles, just with a K on the front. So we just copy them, except there is a negative indefinite article for the plural this time, keine. So you can see that the rest of them are just following the ones above, but with a K on the front. So if that's the case, what is the accusative masculine going to be in the negative indefinite article? Right, keinen. Let's embolden that so we see it's different from the rest. All the others are going to stay the same as the ones above. Keine, kein, keine. So I think English speakers sometimes have a little bit of trouble with this negative indefinite article. We can think of it as something like no plus noun, right? I have no siblings, or I have, you could say I have no siblings, or I don't have a brother or sister. So this keine, keinen, and so on gets translated into English as either no plus noun or not something. I don't have a dog. I don't have a cat. In English, you can also say I have no dog. I have no cat. But that's usually sounds a little bit unusual for us. But that's the function of keine. If you think about it as no plus noun, it's easier to remember and use in German. Ich habe keine Geschwister. Geschwister is the word for siblings. Similarly, if I wanted to say I don't have a brother or sister, I could also say ich habe kein. Actually, let me type it out. Ich habe keinen Bruder. It's the accusative, the direct object of the sentence. Oder ich habe keinen Bruder und kein Schwester. I have no brother and no sister. Brother is masculine, keinen, accusative, keine, feminine, accusative. And again, yes, so the woman does not have a dog. Die Frau hat keinen Hund. We could also say the woman has has no dog, which is a closer word-for-word translation of the German, but usually doesn't sound quite right in English in most cases. But, as I said, thinking of kein as no plus noun, I have no water, I have no friends, I have no whatever. Thinking of no plus noun is the easiest way to remember how to use kein in German. Okay, let's chop that out. I have here 3 verbs. These 3 verbs are important. Sein is to be, werden, to become or will to form the future. When it's used on its own, it usually means become or will become. Bleiben, to stay or to remain. These 3 verbs are probably the most common verbs that you'll come across that require you to use the nominative after you use the verb. And that means that we don't mark the thing that comes after the verb as a direct object in German. So in English, we would, right? So if we look at this sentence, I am a man, in English, we would say, okay, I is doing the being in this sentence, and a man is what the being has been done onto, right? So we would think of I as our subject and a man as our direct object. However, that's not the case in German. So I is the nominative, it's the subject, but also ein Mann. Notice I haven't written einen Mann. I've written ein Mann. It's the nominative form. And the reason for that is because you can swap them around and it means exactly the same thing. Ein Mann bin ich. Ich bin ein Mann. Ein Mann bin ich. Ich bin ein Mann. They're equal. Okay. So don't be tricked. If you're using sein, werden on its own, or bleiben, then what follows should be the nominative, if these 3 are the main verbs in the sentence. Sometimes you'll see sein and werden when they accompany other verbs. That's different. But when they're being used as the main verb, then they will be followed by the nominative. So again, for the example with werden, he becomes a smart man. In English, I would want to mark that as the direct object, right? But in German, it's nominative. And er is also nominative. Wird ein kluger Mann. Same thing goes for bleiben, to stay or to remain. He remains a lonely man. So again, I would want to mark this as nominative. I would want to mark this, I would want to mark this as accusative in English, but in German, bleiben is a nominative verb, a verb that requires the nominative. So in German, these are both nominative. Something to bear in mind, there may be other verbs that require you to use the nominative, but I think these are the 3 ones that crop up most commonly in everyday German, whether it's speaking or reading. These ones are the ones that you see most frequently. Okay, with this in mind, we're going to practice what we've just talked about, marking nouns as the subject of a sentence and marking nouns as the direct object in a sentence. Remember our questions. For the nominative, we ask, who or what is doing the verb? Who or what is doing the action? For the accusative, we ask, what or whom is the verb being done onto? Bear those questions in mind. In this one, what I want you to do is to, well, I've written here that you should mark them as red and blue like I've been doing, but that's not so easy in a video, right? But what you can do is you can note down in your notebook from these 10 sentences what the subject is, i.e., what the nominative is, and what the direct object is, or what the accusative is. I'll read the 10 sentences for you, and then I'll give you a chance to pause the video, and then I'll go over the answers. Okay. 1. I meet them on Tuesday. 2. He plays the piano. 3. They invited me. There's a little tip for the next one. Run, Lola, Run is a German movie. 5. Paul hit the ball. 6. I'm sleeping. 7. Martin and Petra like to read. 8. Is that a Mercedes? 9. Have you seen a Shakespeare play? 10. Donald owns a hotel and a car. Okay, pause the video now. Try to work out the subject and the direct object in the sentences. And I'm going to reveal the answers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so who is doing the meeting? Who's doing the verb? I am doing it. Who is the meeting being done onto? It's them. They're the accusative. He plays the piano. He's doing the playing. He's the subject of the sentence. The thing that's being played, the playing is being done onto the piano. That's the accusative. Who does the inviting? They do the inviting. To whom is the inviting being done onto? Well, that would be me. I would be the direct object there. Run, Lola, Run is a German movie, so it's doing the being, it's the subject. And as this is an English sentence, I would mark this as the direct object. But remember, the verb to be, when it's being used as the main verb in a sentence, will be followed by the nominative. So in German, this bit would be in red, and it would also be nominative. Paul is doing the hitting. He is the subject. The thing that is being hit, the verb's being done onto the ball, the direct object. Who is doing the sleeping? I am doing the sleeping. Martin and Petra like to read. Who likes to read? Martin and Petra. They both like to read. There is no direct object in 6 and 7. Is that a Mercedes? Well, that would be our subject. And again, in English, I would mark this as the direct object, but in German, it would also be nominative because we're using the verb to be, sein, in German. Have you seen a Shakespeare play? Who is doing the seeing, or who's being asked about doing the seeing? You are being asked. You are the subject. What is the seeing being done onto? A Shakespeare play. 10. Donald owns a hotel. Who does the owning? Donald does the owning. What does he own? The owning is being done onto a hotel and a car. It's very possible in both German and English to have more than one nominative in a sentence, more than one subject, and more than one accusative, more than one direct object. Okay, let's do the same thing again, but this time with German sentences. We've got 6 in total. I will read each of the sentences for you, and I'll translate them into English, and then give you a chance to pause the video and work out what the subject and what the direct object is. Nummer 1. Hat ein Buch. He has a book. Nummer 2. Ich trinke Kaffee. I drink coffee. Nummer 3. Martin und Georg kaufen viele CDs. Martin and Georg buy a lot of CDs. Nummer 4. Peter hat den Stift. Peter has the pen. Nummer 5. Herr Schmidt trinkt eine Cola und ein Bier. Mr. Smith drinks a cola and a beer. Nummer 6. Unsere Großeltern sprechen Deutsch. Our grandparents speak German. Okay, so what you want to do now is to pause the video and see if you can work out those subjects and objects. I'm going to reveal the answers in 3, 2, 1. Who is doing the having? Er is doing the having. What is being had? Ein Buch. That's our accusative. Who's doing the drinking? Ich. Ich is doing the drinking. And what's being drunken? Kaffee. Direct object. Martin und Georg kaufen viele CDs. Well, Martin und Georg are both, Georg are both in the nominative. They're both subjects of the sentence. Object, viele CDs. Many or a lot of CDs. Peter hat den Stift. Subject, Peter, he's doing the having, and the thing that's being had is den Stift, the pen. Herr Schmidt trinkt eine Cola und ein Bier. Herr Schmidt is doing the drinking. And the things that are being drunk, the drinking is being done onto a Coke, eine Cola, und ein Bier. He's a thirsty man. Unsere Großeltern sprechen Deutsch. Subject, unsere Großeltern are doing the speaking, and the speaking is being done onto this language that we are learning. Deutsch is our accusative. Okay, with this in mind, now that we've had some practice recognizing the nominative and the accusative, what I want you to do is, using the words in the brackets, der, die, das, and den, I want you to fill in the blanks in the German sentences. So that means you'll need to work out what gender the word is. Is it masculine, feminine, neuter, or plural? And what case is it in? Is it nominative or accusative? And use the correct article. As a quick review, der is the masculine nominative article. Die actually has 4 functions. It's feminine nominative, feminine accusative. It's also plural nominative and plural accusative. Das is used for both the neuter nominative and the neuter accusative. Den is the only one that changes, remember? It's the masculine accusative. So der, masculine nominative, and den is masculine accusative. I'll read the 15 sentences for you. I'll translate them, and then you'll have a chance to pause the video to fill in the blanks with the correct definite article. Nummer 1. Vater findet Tür nicht. The father doesn't find the door. Nummer 2. Professorin schreibt Brief. The professor writes the letter. Nummer 3. Hat der Bruder Buch? Does the brother have the book? Nummer 4. Hat Buch und Stift. He has the book and the pen. Nummer 5. Frau kauft Fernseher, Lampe und Telefon. The woman buys the TV, the lamp, and the telephone. Nummer 6. Das ist Mann. That is the man. 7. Ich mache Buch, Tür und Fenster auf. I open the book, the door, and the window. Nummer 8. Zimmer ist sehr groß. The room is very big. Nummer 9. Bücher sind klein. The books are small. 10. Wo sind Kinder? Where are the children? 11. Wo ist Schreibtisch? it's like caveman German. Where is the desk? 12. Ich sehe Schreibtisch. I see the desk. 13. Wir hören Studenten. We hear the students. 14. Mutter lernt Englisch. The mother learns English. 15. Herr und Frau Schmidt verstehen Sohn und Tochter nicht. Mr. and Mrs. Smith don't understand the son and the daughter. Okay, you will want to pause the video now and try your best at filling in the correct definite article, the correct word for the. I'm going to reveal the answers in 3, 2, 1. Los geht's. Vater is masculine, and in this sentence, it's the nominative, it's the subject. Der Vater findet die Tür nicht. Die Tür is accusative and feminine, but the word for the in accusative and nominative is the same. Professorin is the female professor, and it's the subject of the sentence, and she is writing a letter, which I have hinted at is masculine. Den Brief. Sie schreibt den Brief. It's accusative, masculine. Hat der Bruder das Buch? Buch is neuter, and in this sentence it's accusative, but the word das also works for neuter nominative. Er hat, again, das Buch und den Stift. Stift is masculine, and it's in the accusative. It's the direct object. Die Frau is the subject of the sentence. Kauft den Fernseher. Masculine, direct object. Lampe is feminine, die, and Telefon, I give you a little hint, is neuter, das Telefon. Das ist, don't get tricked. The verb to be means we follow it with the nominative. Das ist der Mann. It is incorrect in this sentence to say den Mann, because sein, the verb to be, forces us, we're required to use the nominative after it. Number 7, ich mache das Buch, neuter accusative, die Tür, feminine accusative, and das Fenster auf. Actually, you could also say die Fenster for this one, because the plural form of window and the singular form of window is the same word in German, Fenster. So if you said das Fenster, the window, that's correct. If you said die Fenster, that's also correct, the windows. Nummer 8, das. The room is very big. Neuter nominative. Die Bücher sind klein. The books, plural. Die Bücher, nominative. Wo sind die Kinder? So although die Kinder comes at the end of the sentence, this is actually nominative. The question words like who, what, when, where, why are not nouns, so they're not subjects. Same thing goes for the next one, right? So I hope you didn't get tricked here. Wo ist der Schreibtisch? So it's incorrect here to say den Schreibtisch, because Schreibtisch is the subject of the sentence. The word wo is not a subject. It's just a question word. So, der. 12. Ich sehe den Schreibtisch. Masculine accusative. Wir hören, and this is plural, die Studenten. 14. Die Mutter lernt Englisch. Feminine nominative. 15. Mr. and Mrs. Smith don't understand masculine accusative, den Sohn, und feminine accusative, die Tochter. I hope you managed to get most of those right. Let's do the same again, but this time with the indefinite articles. So remember, in English, our indefinite articles are a or an, and there's no plural version, right? So we'll be using the words ein, eine, and einen. Just 3 this time. So ein is used for the masculine nominative, but it's also used for the neuter nominative and the neuter accusative. Eine is used for the feminine nominative and the feminine accusative. Einen is the only one that changes. the masculine accusative. Okay, once again, let me read the sentences and translate them, and then you'll have a chance to pause the video and fill in the blanks with the correct indefinite article. Nummer 1. Mann kommt ins Klassenzimmer. A man comes into the classroom. 2. Hast du Brüder oder Schwester? Do you have a brother or a sister? 3. Stuhl ist kaputt. A chair is broken. 4. Hast du Stuhl? Is caveman German. Do you have a chair? 5. Ich suche Stuhl und Tasche. I'm looking for a chair and a bag. 6. Meine Schwester und ich sehen Freund und Freundin in der Schule. My sister and I see friend, a male friend, and a female friend in the school. Okay, so a little hint. Freund is a male friend. Freundin, a female friend. 7. Heute kommt Neffe von mir. This particular structure, so remember you're going to fill in the blank with one of the correct definite articles. So literally what this little bit of the sentence would be almost word for word is, a nephew of mine. But in English it makes much more sense to translate this as my nephew. So my nephew is coming today. But literally the word order in German would be today comes a nephew of me. That's how it's said generally in spoken German, in more casual German. You could find the same sentence using the genitive case, which we're not talking about in this video, in more formal situations. And it's just more proper German to use the genitive in this case. But most Germans don't use the genitive when they speak. But more on that in part 2 of the cases videos. Und Nummer 8. Studentin heißt Karen und Student heißt Karl. A student is called Karen, and a student is called Carl. Okay, pause the video now, pop in the correct indefinite articles, and I will reveal the answers in 3, 2, 1. Ein Mann kommt ins Klassenzimmer. Masculine nominative, he's doing the coming. Hast du einen Bruder, masculine accusative, oder eine Schwester, feminine accusative. Ein Stuhl ist kaputt, masculine nominative. Hast du einen Stuhl, masculine accusative. Again, for the next one, masculine accusative. Ich suche einen Stuhl und feminine accusative, eine Tasche. Meine Schwester und ich sehen einen Freund, masculine accusative, and feminine accusative, eine Freundin. Heute kommt, I hope you didn't get tricked by this one either, ein Neffe von mir. It's nominative. It's the subject of the sentence. The nephew is doing the coming, right? Today is not doing the coming. Actually, the word today in this sentence is an adverb. We don't even count this as a noun. So always remember, the nominative is going to be the thing that's doing the verb. The subject does the verb. Okay. Eine Studentin, this is nominative feminine. And again, I hope you didn't get tricked by this one. The word and is connecting two sentences together. So even though this word comes quite far into the complete sentence, this is still only nominative because the student is what's being called. So what's doing the verb? What's being called? A student is being called Carl. That's the nominative. Nominative masculine. Okay, and our last activity of the video, Only 5 of these. I want you to fill in the correct form of kein, and we only have 3 to work with again. Kein is used for the masculine nominative, the neuter nominative, and neuter accusative. Keine has 4 uses this time. It's feminine nominative and accusative, and it's also plural nominative and accusative. Keinen, the only one that changes, masculine accusative. Let me read the sentences, translate them, and then you can pause the video and fill them in. Nummer 1. Das ist Mann. Das ist eine Frau. That's not a man. That's a woman. Nummer 2. Das ist Problem. That's not a problem or that's no problem. Nummer 3. Wir haben Zeit. We don't have any time or we have no time. 4. Hier ist Uhr. There is no clock here, or there's not a clock here. 5. Sie hat Lampe, Stuhl und Buch. She doesn't have a lamp, a chair, or a book. Or she has no lamp, no chair, and no book. Pause the video now before I reveal the answers in 3, 2, 1. Here's your hint. I hope you didn't get tricked. Sein makes us use the nominative. Das ist kein Mann. Das ist eine Frau. So remember, sein, werden, bleiben are nominative verbs. You're required to use the nominative after them when they're the main verb in the sentence. Problem, I've given you a hint, is neuter. Das ist kein Problem. And again, just like the first sentence, this one is also in the nominative, but Problem is neuter. Mann is masculine. Nummer 3, again, little hint. Zeit is feminine. So this is feminine accusative, and it's keine Zeit. Wir haben keine Zeit. We don't have time. We have no time. Hier ist keine Uhr. Same as Zeit. It's a feminine noun. In sentence number 3, Zeit is accusative because it's the object of haben. In number 4, Uhr is nominative. It's the subject of the sentence. Hier is not a subject. It's not a noun. 5. Sie hat keine Lampe. Feminine accusative. Masculine accusative. Keinen Stuhl. And kein Buch. Neuter accusative. And that's all for today. So stick around for my next upload, which will be part 2 of the cases. And in that video, we'll be looking at the genitive, the dative and the genitive. I like to put them that way around. So if you liked the video, if you found this helpful, please do like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so that we can reach more learners of German and help them along their way. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.